Yes, yeah. Just one additional housekeeping note. When you get done tonight, you don't necessarily have to rank any of these individuals. Just write the comments. That's all we're really looking for. You know, the things that impress you, the questions you have, your general impressions. I know some of you will not be able to resist either writing a comment or doing a ranking, and I'll live with that, but it's not necessary. Well, we've gotten to our final candidate, and thank you for your staying power. And I know you've enjoyed the first two candidates, and I know you will enjoy our final candidate as well. Some of you may know him. It's my pleasure, and I hope I get it right, to introduce Gereon Menther.
Yeah, close.
I'm getting better?
Mentner, yeah, that's right.
Well, now I've got the last name mixed up.
That's okay.
Okay.
It really is.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. It means a lot to me to be back in Shawano, almost on this stage. I've been on the stage a couple other times, for some Leeds exploration celebrations. That was pretty fun. But probably the most nerve-wracking time that I was on that stage was when I first came back as an assistant principal, and within a couple days, guess what I was doing? I was training to be in The Music Man. And I was supposed to say, what do you add, or what do you got, or something like this over and over again. And I was panicking because I really wanted to help Jonathan out. And I've never been on a stage for any kind of presentation before. And he helped me because I was supposed to be reading a newspaper. And so I got to put the script on that newspaper, so I really didn't screw it up. So I actually had to got my musical debut here on this stage. And anyway, I'm proud to be back. I was talking to the other group. People asked, why Shawano, why right now? And many of you know me, many of you don't. I've worked here twice. I was a French teacher and a middle school football coach and a middle school track coach. For a brief time, I was a 7th grade girls volleyball coach. Thankfully, that was a brief period of time. Then I left and went to grad school again and spent some time exploring and becoming a student of leadership, and had the opportunity to return here as the at-risk coordinator and executive director of the Leeds Primary Charter School. And that was a tremendous opportunity for me to put the leadership skills that I had been studying into practice, and continue the relationships that I had started when I came here in 2007 as a teacher. Then another opportunity came up for me to be a building level leader. 4 years ago, I became the grades 7 through 12 principal at Gibraltar area schools in Door County, in the town of Fish Creek. That has been an exciting learning opportunity for me. It's put all of the theory and all the things you learn in graduate school and everything to the test, but it was something that I feel has caused me to grow and evolve as both a person and as a leader. It's given me a lot of great ideas that I think I would like to bring to our district with regard to student outcomes and climate. And so when I think about coming back here, why Shawano, why now? This has been a place of opportunity. Shawano's given me far more than I've given back to yet, and I don't feel like I'm done yet. And the opportunity to come back here and continue to serve the Shawano community is something that it's an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. I have a great job, but the opportunity to be here again in this community, to raise my children. I've got a son coming on the way here in October, and I couldn't be more excited to have my son someday graduate as a Hawk. And so, I'm really looking to the long term to reestablish myself in our community here, and I'm just so honored to be a part of this tonight. So many of you don't know my wife. I'm married to a wonderful lady named Lane, and Lane is originally from Marinette, and she is the tourism administrator for the village of Ephraim. Has anyone ever been to the Fear Ball celebration in Ephraim? Yeah, Fear Ball, that's Lane. She does that. When I brought Lane over here and we spent a Saturday cruising around, and I was showing her all the fun parts of town, and we were kind of thinking, how could she transfer those skills that she's learned as a tourism administrator there to being a part of the community here? And that was pretty fun. It's pretty exciting. So, as a family, we're very excited about returning to Shawano, and I really hope that, that I'll have that opportunity. I guess at this point, I'd be fine opening up to, any questions. I don't really want to talk too much about myself. Well, let me say one more thing. Since I left, I've been really excited, and when I was driving around and spending that time, I've noticed a lot of changes in Shawano. The middle school is just phenomenal. I mean, the work that the school's done to renovate that middle school, it just looks wonderful. Olga Brenner looks wonderful. I think the district should be very proud, and the community very proud of the wonderful facilities that we have here. When I think about Smalley Park and what they're doing with the old hospital area, the Franklin School, Memorial Park with the, what do they call it, the splash pad? I think about that stuff, and I see a community that is really forward-looking in creating spaces that are inviting to families and allow us the opportunity to build and grow together as a district and as a community. And so I'm really excited about that. And so that was the other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned in my introduction. But at this point, that's really all I have to say, about myself. If any of you have any questions about my background or experiences or what I, might be looking to do here, I'd be really curious. Yeah, Liz.
Okay, I'll start. And maybe you can get more details just because you have so much prior knowledge with Shawano and the district itself. As a staff member, I don't feel like I have a solid understanding of what direction the district is going, what my ultimate goal should be. Is my goal to get the graduation rate up? Is it to create well-formed students? Is it to keep kids out of the office? How do you go about developing a vision for the district? And like I said, maybe because you do have so much more background knowledge about the district, where would you want to see it 5 years from now? Well,
certainly 5 years from now, in a situation where those things wouldn't be questions on your mind. When I look at the direction that I think the district is heading with strategic planning and vision setting, that involves including teacher representation, community member representation in contributing to that initial vision and carrying out those objectives. When it filters down to the building and teacher level, I would expect that vision becomes a framework for you as a teacher to, really interpret what your goals are, and it should be very clear to you. Maybe not in just the single sentence vision statement, but in some of the subsequent objectives. And so I would hope that you would see that. In addition to that, our work as a district and then at the building level, I think has to include discussions on where you feel comfortable and open to ask that question and collectively get an answer. That involves creating a climate, creating an environment where you feel comfortable to take that emotional risk. And I think we should do that if we're going to move forward. So, thank you. That's it? It's going to be this short? Yes, ma'am.
And I understand you're working up in Door County, and we have a campus up in Door County. Can you share with me some of the things that you've done to work with technical education in your role? And then my second question is, thinking about public education, what are the three things that keep you up at night worrying about the future of technical or public education?
Thank you. When I think about like the Sister Bay campus of NWTC, which has recently opened, that when we were meeting and talking about what the possibilities of collaboration were, it's an interesting discussion for us at our school at Gibraltar because our school offers 14 AP classes. And that is a primary draw for a lot of our students. We don't do a whole lot with dual enrollment presently. And what we settled on was really they're going to get that program going, and some of the add-on programs like the food safety program and some of the other really culinary related licensure programs would be things that we would certainly be happy to share with our students and build upon. I've met with Brooke several times. She's done a site visit, and we've looked at ways to enhance our tech ed department connections. I know that here, in Gibraltar, we have a lot of strong connections with the various technical colleges. And, I think there's certainly value in that. Really for us, in my particular district right now where I'm at, we offer so much in-house that it's really a challenge to think about sending students out or in dual enrollment. But I can give you an example. Right now, I signed off the other day on a student who is going to spend about half of her day at the Sturgeon Bay campus working toward becoming a diesel mechanic because of the strength of that program there. And, we're happy to do that. So I would see that. Now, the three things that would, and to speak to that, if I were to come here, I think that my existing relationship with the technical system representatives, in addition to connections I have with the UW Green Bay system in some of their new CEO roles as they went through their transition, I think I bring those connections here with me. They certainly don't go away. And my experience as a university instructor before coming back to Shawano, I think helps me understand the perspective of post-secondary ed and thinking about how we can make those connections. So I would certainly bring that back to the district, as a strength. Three things that keep me up at night. Well, things that have kept me up at night are when we're in scenarios where we're really worried about safety. When we've had various threats, other things that really have, given us cause to take some immediate action. And that's always on the forefront, of an administrator's mind, in ensuring that we're communicating out to the community that we have a safe school that you should feel very comfortable sending your son or daughter or grandson, granddaughter, whatever else, to. And so, that's something that's certainly always on our mind. As safety is kind of the first responsibility of a school. When I think about instruction, something that I have grown into as an administrator and working with teachers is the concept of teaching to mastery. And what I mean by that is, as we were examining our own practices at the school where I work presently, we found that we were doing a really great job with our kids who are taking a total of 12 or 14 AP courses over the course of their high school career. Those kids are really getting a great education. But what we also noticed was we had an increasing amount of students who were not proficient in math and ELA. And we really had to take a hard look at our own practices, and it was a very difficult conversation and realization for us to have as a school that, we are a special school that has a tremendous community support and resource, but we had some holes in our instruction. And what keeps me up is trying to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can as a leader to assist that staff in kind of turning that tide around and making sure that we're getting all of our students, that we're centered on all of our students achieving mastery, not just a segment of our students. We do a really great job with certain parts. Some of our real low-end students do a great job, and some of our real high-end students do a great job. But there's a big chunk of our kids that, because of our instructional design and curriculum alignment, that we felt that we weren't getting to. So that's probably the second thing. The third thing that pops into my mind when I think about what does give me, feelings that keep me up sometimes would be communication. It's interesting in the role of an administrator. And when you're a small school principal, I'm grade 7 through 12, you often find yourself wearing a lot of hats that you might not in a larger district where you can be more siloed because of just so many more people. You know, when my superintendent's gone, I'm the one that's out checking the roads. You know, if you Google my name and No Direct Threat, you'll see me on, I think it was WBAY, talking about, you know, a goofy person in the community, and we'd called in a reserve deputy, and it was really a big deal. Well, my superintendent was gone, so I had to take over that role. And, you know, one of the things that has really come to the fore, I guess, for me as a principal and thinking about the superintendent role is making sure that I've done everything I can to communicate as promptly as possible with as much information I can and in as clear of a fashion as possible. And that spends, you know, I spend a lot of time writing drafts of, you know, what I'm going to write and, you know, having another person look over it. And oftentimes I might draft the first thing and then we look at it as a team before we send it out. But communication, I think, would be the third thing. You know, you can never give enough communication to some, you know, and you can never get it out fast enough. So, you know, you're never going to please everyone with that. But I think really focusing on making sure that you can communicate out even things like, you know, a vision, you know, for what you're going to, you know, what your responsibilities are as a teacher. That's one thing. But in the, you know, in the heat of the moment, those critical communications that need to go out, it's a real challenge. So thank you for the question. Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit how you would blend career and technical education and core curriculum to help students in the academic career planning process?
So, as a former tech ed teacher, having spent time in the classroom as a tech ed teacher, I can certainly attest to the fact that there were times when I felt like the school, this not here, I didn't teach here, but the school I was working in, the other departments may not have seen my area where I was teaching as having a real big impact on things like math scores or ELA scores. I guess I'll start by talking a little bit about that. So I feel like it's important to recognize the value of shop math, you know, of the writing process that's involved in a good, in a good quality shop program. There's a lot of math, ELA, research skills, you know, other high quality, high depth of knowledge thought that goes into being a great tech ed student. When you think about blending that with the college and career planning, you know, we're so fortunate here in Shawano to have so many great areas of career planning that a student can have access to right here in the building. And I think it starts there. It starts in the woodshop class, you know, the metals classes, our automotive classes, our ag classes, and making sure that we're doing everything we can for students to have an understanding of how they could apply those skills in a career setting. I know you guys do a great job of that here, and I would say, you know, what can we do in that scenario to get the word out more, get more kids involved? You know, if from the former shop teacher in me thinks every kid ought to have to take, you know, wood shop, but that's the former shop teacher in me, because I believe those skills, even if you're not going to transmit them into a career, you at least become a better informed consumer. So, you know, I see a tremendous value in the tech ed department that way.
We've done a lot in our district, especially the high school level, with looking at the culture of our students, our community, and our staff, and our athletic programs. What have you been able to implement, if anything, in your experience, to help with your school culture and your environment?
I think the biggest thing where I've seen some success in improving culture, climate within at least our secondary, is doing everything I can to provide voice to the various stakeholders in that school. So, like, for example, I have a student advisory group. I stole the idea from here. I know we had a student advisory group here, but didn't have that before there. And so, you know, that group for me is open to anyone. We have it on a regular basis during our academic intervention enrichment period. We called it PEP. I know it's similar to the Hawk Time, where students could come. Sometimes that agenda was things that had specific things I wanted to ask the kids for, but it always has an open, you know, agenda item where they can, you know, ask me questions and have, you know, a voice that way. I feel like that gets on the front end of some issues that could arise later. I also have a parent advisory group that I started my second year. I could tell that there were a lot of parents who were very interested in what was going on in the school, and that without an opportunity for them to like interface with me directly, we weren't going to get as far in terms of building relationships. And that's been a very positive thing. Frankly, I've gotten a lot of great ideas from both the Student Advisory Committee and the Parent Advisory Committee. And I think it's helped parents who wanted to be very engaged, students who wanted to be very engaged, feel that way and actually feel like they're having a contribution. And that's helped with things like in our student body. For example, when I first got there, I had a new handbook. You know, there were some rules that were a little bit different, and kids wanted to know. So, okay, let's talk and let's talk about it. Parents wanted to get a website that was more functional for them as parents. Well, we took it on and we worked on it. They wanted to work on bullying. We formed a little committee. They came up with ideas, and we met with our PBIS committee. You know, we improved that perception that way. The other way I think you improve some of the climate within a community district building, you know, student, you know, level, is frankly good communication, good public relations. We have a teacher in our district or in the secondary, who has a little supplementary contract, who does a great job of keeping our Facebook page updated with all the great things that are going on in our school. And that not only recognizes students and staff who are making, you know, kind of going above and beyond, it puts positive messaging out all the time coming out of our school. And that's important. We have our equivalent of the Concerned Parents, you know, Facebook page too. Everybody has that no matter where you are. And I think getting that message out, it has a positive impact on our culture within the building and helps us in the community. Well, thanks.
With your prior knowledge of Shawano School District and any review you did of current information on the school district, what would be your top 3 concerns that need to be addressed?
Certainly math and ELA skills throughout. I think proficiency levels in the core content areas is something that's very important for us to address and to examine. So I would say academic outcomes, you know, proficiency in math and reading and ELA would be one thing that's of major interest to me that I think we should explore. I do see some positive trends, so I would want to recognize what is going on that's having a positive impact, but then also examine, I think there's still work to be done, frankly, at every building level that way. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I had the same responsibility in my own school. I think that's a pretty common thing. School safety would be another thing that I would want to engage with the school safety team, with the sheriff's department, with the city municipal police, and look at in EMS services, fire, and review and make sure that our safety protocols and plans were up to date. You know, I remember going through the ALICE training here at school. That was really a great thing. We had simulated live blank, rounds and things. It was very impactful, but that was 6 years ago. I would want to say, have we, how many people have we hired since then? Don't get me wrong, this may have happened and I just don't know that answer, but how long has it been since we really reviewed those safety protocols so that everyone feels, up to date and current with that. That would be something that is of major interest to me. Another area would be really looking at how we can expand our school-community relationship, and saying, like, for example, with area businesses, learning about what the needs are, how we might be able to help our students. I don't think all of our students need to be entering directly into factory jobs out of high school. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think we have students who might want to go become an engineer, and if they don't know that they can come back to Shawano and be an engineer, we've not really done our job, and we won't know that unless, as a school, we partner with community businesses to find out, where their projected needs are. If you look at the statistics on people who are going to retire over the next 10 years versus people who are going to be entering the workforce, we are not going to put enough people into the workforce to meet that need. And so, when we think of strategic planning as a school and as a community, what can we do to make sure that we are having kids leave our district ready for that next step, and that they know there might be some great opportunities back here in Shawano. It's the same challenge we face in Door County, where I'm at presently. There's some great industry that people can be a part of, but a lot of the kids don't know it. And then they think about that brain drain. So that would be another area of priority for me. Thanks. Yes.
Shawano is moving into a one-on-one technology scenario, and what is your experience with it? How have you seen any changes in education because of it?
That's a great question. Thank you. I do have direct experience with one-to-one programming. Our school has a one-to-one laptop program in the high school. All students as freshmen are issued a laptop. And then last year, we put into practice a one-to-one Chromebook initiative. And we did that for some real specific reasons. More and more of our teachers are moving to the Google platform, Google School, shared Google Docs for how they deliver their instruction. And we felt like it would be an equality issue if we didn't provide these opportunities to the kids. We had the resource, the ability to do it. And so if we, instead of asking kids to bring their own device, they call that BYOD. You actually hear people use that as the reference. It's a real thing, it's true. But instead of that, we felt like we had the need to provide that. What that did was give us the ability to ensure that all of our students had a high quality Chromebook, that they could have equal access to the programming that our teachers were providing. And I felt like at the end of this year, we had a very successful experience. All of our students, 7 through 12, were issued this, either a laptop or Chromebook that they bring home. The Chromebooks are turned in at the end of the school year, and then we reissue them. We'll reissue them in the fall. But we had very little issues with damage or, kids forget to charge their Chromebooks, and that's about the biggest trouble that we, dealt with, was making sure that we had the ability for kids to either check out a loaner or recharge in class. But I do feel like it's had a positive impact in terms of access and equity across, our student body. We have challenges in our district with internet access. If you ever drive through Door County, you go down into a town and up, down into a town and up, and broadband just doesn't seem to get down to the bottom of some of those lower areas. We're looking at, of course you can work offline, on a Chromebook, but we're looking at providing some portable access points that we could give to kids, again, trying to make sure that all students have access to that. Something an unexpected challenge that's come out of issuing all students Chromebooks and laptops is making sure that at the classroom level, if you don't need the kids to be using the Chromebook or the laptop, that they close the Chromebook or laptop and put it away so it's not a distraction from learning. That's something that, it's really a principals issue. It's not a superintendent's issue, but that is something that's a challenge that comes about. All of a sudden we have access to this right in class, and we also have access to March Madness, you know? So it's really, I think, up to the teacher for, you know, to provide that as, you know, in a responsible use context. So that's my experience with it. I think it's a good thing if used properly. When we've had success with it, and I'm happy that we did what we did in our district.
Do you think it could help bridge the gap with contact hours, makeup? Do you think it could bridge a gap with contact hours days or makeup days?
Funny you should say that. We, I'm sure like here, had the challenge of all the snow days this year. And we were tasked with looking at how we could possibly make up some of those hours and how we could avoid getting in that, you know, slump of falling below our required hours. And we are looking at digital learning days as an option. Sometimes I think, you know, one could just jump in and say, okay, everybody's going to be on their laptop, but now we've got that same access issue that we had before. So, you know, that we do all the time when kids take their Chromebooks home and they have no access to the internet because there's no DSL or broadband ability. So there's a lot of thought that goes into preparing a good digital learning day. What we're planning to do as a district next year would be to do a simulated digital learning day at school first, because we feel like we might be able to work out some of the unanticipated problems that could arise from that before we try to actually use it, you know, as a supplement for instructional time. If we're going to do that, I want to be able to really defend that to the taxpayers, that, you know, and to the state if we ever had to, that this is actually, you know, valuable time and not just kids got the Chromebook sitting on the snowman. You know, I know what I'd be doing it, you know, back in fifth grade or whatever. So, you know, but if it's engaging and if it's a quality, you know, program that you can offer, I think it could be, you know, an option. We also added 5 instructional days to our calendar for next year so that we're really sure we're going to have enough for next year. But the digital learning thing, I'm glad you asked the question. I'm glad to hear that it's being talked about in different areas. When I was exploring it, there's a lot of schools that have tried it, Pulaski, some others, and I spoke to a number of principals, you know, who were experimenting with that, and who knows? You know, that could be the next, you know, another thing that we do to try to maintain instructional time. I know that our teachers lost significant amounts of instructional time this year, and I know that that's going to have a negative impact, you know, on our ability to make sure kids were ready for the next step for next year. I just know it because the teachers were reporting it, you know, as we were moving through our year. Another way that we're looking at making up instructional time, we've expanded our intervention enrichment period for next year in grades 7 through 12, and we're going to actually, like if we have a fog delay or an ice delay, we're going to make up those periods during that intervention enrichment time just to try to maintain instructional time, much in the same spirit as having a digital learning day. So, thank you.
Okay, I'll go. As superintendent, what is your philosophy, or what do you see the working relationship with the Education Association looking like?
Oh, interesting question. Well, I think it's one of communication. One of the things that we've tried to do is set up some structured, routine, you know, communication. I would hope that we work in an environment where both staff who participate and don't, you know, in the Education Association have the ability to voice their needs and concerns. And I would be, I guess, personally interested in hearing what those are, understanding that, you know, I don't have a magic wand to fix all issues the same as I don't as a principal, but I think the ability to maintain open lines of communication to where if there's a concern we can talk, I think that's my philosophy. You know, you're not always going to make me happy. I'm not always going to be able to make you happy, but at least we've had the opportunity to talk about it in a respectful, professional way. And I think that could probably, I don't know what the current situation of that is, but if you feel that that's not the case, maybe that could be something that helps improve, you know, some of the climate issues that I've heard about over the course of, this interview process. Thanks. I know that not talking about things does not help. I know that. Absolutely. Other questions? Yeah.
So I've asked the other two candidates, and I'm really happy to hear that you brought up both of my concerns and a lot of families' concerns already. School safety and bullying. Can you talk on those two topics real quick?
I guess I can start with a lot of the ideas that I've put into practice over the last couple of years are some of the things, some ideas that, I kind of stole from things that were already started here. And, so I'm really proud of some of the work that we've done to engage and create a safety team that involves Door County Medical Service, the emergency medical services, Sheriff's Department, fire departments. Some of those things they've been really great because we've built relationships that didn't exist. We didn't know each other until we got together and started talking about school safety. When I see various servicemen in the field and women, I know them by name. We have that relationship. They know if they come into my building that they're going to feel welcomed, and that if they have a question, they can come to me. And that's something that has been a real, I think, hallmark of some of the changes we've put in place in my district over the past 4 years. And it's not just me. We have an assistant principal, Tim Mulrain, who does a phenomenal job of engagement with that, and our superintendent and board are very much supportive of that as well. I think school safety starts with those relationships. We collaborate at the county level with the various administrators and county level emergency personnel in some simulated evacuation activities, different things. I got my school bus driver's license, so I'm sure that if I needed to, I can hop in a bus and I can be at Sevastopol in 22 minutes if I need to be. And they know that they could count on me to do that. I know that I'm not going to be, putting on a vest and charging into something, but I know my role because we've talked about it. And we've done simulations on it, and that's, and that's continuing to evolve over time. I would be anxious to see, where Shawano School District has come since, like, for example, we were in that Alice training in the English pod years ago, and seeing, what have we done since? Because I'm sure there's an awful lot of great things that have happened in terms of building that practice up. I would ask the question of, has it been 6 years since we did that, though, and is it time to do it again? I don't know. If maybe you just did it last year and whatever, but I don't think you can ever do enough preparation for some very serious things. I don't think you have to completely ignore instruction and do nothing but drill work or something, but I do think that it needs to be periodically revisited with staff, students, and then communicated out to parents. It's just important. People feel more comfortable if they know where to go. We all know how to do a fire drill. We feel comfortable when a fire drill happens. But I think when we think about a drill of a run, hide, take action type, run, hide, fight type situation, we might not be as comfortable. Well, maybe we need to practice it and talk about it a little bit more. So I'd say on school safety that that's something that it's an ongoing process that I would want to see continue. In terms of continuing to build relationships. I personally, moving here, we played against each other in football. I've known you in some way or another since the 1990s. I like the idea that I know our sheriff and can make that connection. That's a great thing, and that means a lot to me because I know how hard it is to build those relationships because I'm currently doing it, in my district. And that means a lot to me. And so I would be very comfortable and very happy in engaging with, Shawano County personnel and continuing and developing that safety plan. With regard to bullying, I would also be curious where we've come in the past 4 years. What systems do we have in place for students to feel comfortable reporting that's going on? What is our current student handbook at all the levels in terms of, student discipline? How does that look in terms of, how does it guide us in what we do to follow through with bullying? I remember hearing, and I don't know, maybe you can confirm this, that there was some avant-garde practices of maybe issuing citations to parents. Is that something that actually happened here, or?
The city passed an ordinance where they would, well, in fact, Wisconsin Rapids is talking about the same ordinance, but honestly, it's probably unconstitutional. And Shawano's never issued a citation to a parent for bullying, their kid bullying. So, but obviously, we do have bullying issues just like every other community, so.
The only reason I asked that question is because I know some things have changed, since I've left. But I would want to know what our existing practices are and how that's working, what successes are out there and where we're struggling. You're right, bullying is present in every place. We deal with bullying in every grade, from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I think, again, well, one of the things that we focus on in our Positive Behavioral Intervention Support, PBIS group, is like a group of adults that looks at issues that are not on the academic side, but on the behavioral side, of a school. And we're looking at, do students have adults in the building they can trust? And we're working on initiatives that put teachers with students in a scenario where, it helps build that trust. And because we found in our youth risk behavior survey that, we all give, at schools, that there were an alarming number of students in our school who did not feel that way. And, when I think about something like bullying, our ability to make connections with kids to where we can actually know about it and deal with it. I always tell parents, I fail at 100% of the bullying cases I know nothing about. Because I always get the bad thing that happened, and then they say, well, this has been happening for so long. But the person didn't report it. That responsibility isn't always just on the kid. What systems are we putting in place to help kids feel comfortable making that report in the first place? So I'd want to examine that. Thanks for the question.
Time for maybe one or two questions.
Mr. Stever.
Our district is about the same size as a number of other districts in our general region, north central, northeastern Wisconsin. And our average salary and compensation package is at the bottom of that group of 9 or 10 schools by anywhere from $7,000 to $13,000 on average. And I'm wondering if you see that as a challenge to retaining talented staff.
Thanks for the question, Dave. I certainly, well, right when time I was leaving, I felt like they were getting started with a wage survey, so I assume that data that you're referring to is a result of that, or was it more related to
Talking about
just your own research?
Data from the DPI website.
Okay.
And, we've had a salary schedule where people have incentive to professionally improve, and the result of that last spring was a survey asking us ways that we would be willing to reduce the ways that we can increase our own salaries. So I'm wondering what structures you think you might be able to help institute in a leadership position where somebody who teaches if I'm looking at a 26-year veteran who has established a career in Wapaka or Seymour or Antigo or Rhinelander or Clintonville, and they're making $7,000 to $13,000 more per year, is there some way that Shawano can be on a par with that? It seems like we're always chasing somebody else. We've instituted one-to-one technology after a lot of other schools have. We've established a desire to have a community recreation and aquatic center after a lot of other districts have. And we're lagging behind on compensation. Do you see that as a priority? Should we work towards increasing that or just continue hiring new people?
It's a great question. I don't know that I have enough information to fully answer it on the spot right here. But I think it ties in with some of the concerns that I'm hearing about having a voice, having the ability to share that concern in a way that's received. If I come here and I'm your superintendent, I'm not going to be able to create a line in the budget that allows for $7,000 raises, that's not something that I could ever promise that I could just come in and do, right? But when we think about moving forward, something that I think works well in my district, for example, is teachers are able to advance their salary through several ways. We don't have a point system or anything like that, but what we have, if a teacher achieves the national boards status, that's a large pay increase. If they add licensure that benefits the district in a pre-approved way, like for example, if you're a science teacher and you add a math license because you want, there's a need, or something of that nature, that's something that has a significant pay increase. And then also for board-approved master's degrees that are, relevant to what you're teaching. You can't get it approved to be, a master's degree in French literature if you're a technology teacher. That typically wouldn't be something that's approved. But it's something that's out there, and it's real, and it's obtainable, and it's something that you can shoot for. That's a forever forward type, salary increase that benefits both you and the district. And so, I guess I would be interested in, I really don't know, despite I know a lot of folks, who teach here and do other things, but I really don't have a full understanding of what the current pay structure is. And so for me to say I would change this or that about it specifically, I just don't have enough information, Dave, to do that, at this point and to look at it. But I do know, that retaining high-quality staff is important. I do know that incentivizing staff to improve professionally is important because it has a benefit both on staff morale and on student outcomes. And I'm all about student outcomes and making sure that we're doing everything we can. And I recognize that, happy people are better teachers. But again, I couldn't tell you that I can wave some kind of magic wand that would solve that specific issue, but I would promise that I would listen to everything, that I could and try to do my best to advocate for what's best for kids. So, thanks.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up at that, unless you have a final comment or anything that you'd like to share.
I just sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here in the first place. Whether it happens or not, it's so wonderful to see some of your faces again. And this is a really special place for me, and so the chance to come back and be here again means a lot. And if it works out, I cannot wait to hit the ground running and be your next superintendent. So thank you very much.
If you can indulge me for one final minute, please take whatever time you need to complete the 3 forms, put them on the back table or hand them to me. I will get them to the board. The board will deliberate some tonight, but they've also scheduled a meeting for tomorrow night. I think they want to soak on this a little bit. There's been a lot of input. They may want to look at these videos. So they are going to perhaps meet again tomorrow night. In fact, I think they likely will. When they'll actually announce something, I'm not sure. My advice as the consultant is to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and the person is committed to coming before you release information only to have someone change his or her mind. So please be patient, but I think it'll be much sooner rather than later. And finally, I just want to thank you again for 3 hours of your time tonight. This is wonderful to have that kind of commitment, and hopefully you found it interesting and valuable. The board will appreciate your feedback, and with that, there may even be a few snacks left to grab on the way out, and thanks again so much. Have a good night.